You may be a manufacturer of energy efficient or water saving products. You have an opportunity here to get your product on that website, because if you don't and somebody else does, and the purchaser is aware of this relief, and all things being equal, of course, in terms of the product, he's going to buy the other one because he's going to get 100% tax relief. There is to look at anything around, in fact, combined heat and power plants, anything around biomass, anything, really anything to do with water or energy saving. We get our team, if they're doing a tax comp, to at least look at the website and then go back to our clients and at least ask the question, because I don't suspect, because I find it time and time again when I do a final review of a comp, this is being missed, because either the question is not being asked or not enough time is being spent just to go into the website and check the product. It's not always easy to marry up what you think you've got on the shop floor and what you've got on the list, but that's another issue. Question needs to be asked. So, I talked about a range of reliefs, no single code, and I wasn't entirely sure who'd be in the audience, so very quickly I'll just mention a few others without necessarily going into much detail, and then I'll finish. If you are remediating contaminated land, the Imerys example that I mentioned earlier, then you are entitled to, I think it's 150% tax deduction for any expenditure on that. There's also a similar code of 100% allowances or tax release for plant and machinery and other capital assets involved in that. If you're renovating business premises, particularly, well, in a disadvantaged area, then there's a code which allows you revenue relief as well. If you are putting thermal insulation in a building, then there is a 10% allowance. So that's to encourage landlords and others, particularly of commercial properties, to put thermal insulation in their buildings and obviously reduce their carbon footprint. There's a similar scheme for corporate landlords of private houses, but that's relatively small, although of course it multiplies up if you have a lot of rental property. I think just in conclusion, I would say the market is huge. As I said on my first slide, we could debate how well we're capitalising on that in the Southwest. We have a fantastic aerospace and defence industry, mainly, I suppose, around Yeovil and Bristol and through to Plymouth in the south. We have tremendous expertise. Question, are we doing enough to buy into that budget? You may challenge me around the timing of that. Of course, times are hard. It's not easy to get funding, but there are funds available. So I would certainly close with that comment. And thirdly, whatever you're modelling, and I've looked at a lot of modelling for these sorts of projects, you've got to make some assumptions about tax. There are tax reliefs available which can significantly reduce the post-tax cost of investment. But you've got to look in more than one place. So I hope I've given you an awareness of what's available so that you can know where to look. Thank you. Just in closing, I'd just like to mention that we have in Southampton Faye Ruffles. So unfortunately, we have an event today in Reading, so she's there. She's required to be there, but she does nothing else but put research and development tax claims together for clients and has done for 2 years. She's a tax specialist and tax trained, so she has a very good general tax awareness, but she does nothing else than help companies maximise their claims. And in the audience, Adrian, please stand up, we have Adrian Williams. Now, Adrian is not a tax consultant. He is an engineer. Perhaps you'd like to just explain what you do.
Thanks, that's right. As Nigel mentioned, my name's Adrian Williams. I'm actually a member of the dedicated R&D tax services team at Ernst & Young. And it consists largely of people like myself who, rather than being tax technical specialists or accountants, are actually scientists, technologists and engineers who spent many years in industry prior to joining EY. And our function is solely really to work with companies like yourselves to try and help identify what activities you have in the organisations that can be eligible for these schemes. And as Nigel hinted at, that the definition that's used for these schemes for R&D is actually much broader than our classical definition of R&D that we tend to use in the industry. So we tend to find potentially eligible activities not only in product development, but in service development, process development, and even in the generation of intangibles such as new knowledge about science and technology throughout the organisation, from the programme management office through testing, commercialisation, and even in some cases in the support areas of the organisation. So I won't take too much time because I know we're short, but if you are wondering how some of these schemes might apply to the activities that you undertake, and I think any company that's interested in an innovation forum like this is almost certainly going to have some level of activity that could qualify for these schemes. So please do call me at lunchtime. I'd be glad to talk through some of those things. Thank you.
Enjoyed the presentation. Is it possible to get copies of the slides? And you did the slides for all presenters today.
We're having them filmed and they'll be attached as attachment. Well, they'll be attached to the Southwest Science Industry Council newsletter that will go out to all of you. So you'll be able to get video of everything and presentation.
Hi.
How are outsourced R&D costs dealt with?
You have to be very careful there. There are actually complicated rules there. There are restrictions for payments to subcontractors under most of the schemes, but you still can get payments for them. What you don't get always is a payment. What you have to watch is who is the recipient of the payment. Right. So if it's a university, then you would generally get tax relief. The costs would qualify. Yeah. If it was a company, then you don't always qualify, depending on whether you're an SME or large. It's quite a complex area. But relief, I think the message I'd leave you with is that relief is generally available. I had a case a few years ago where a company was listing out its analysis of qualifying expenses with a list of individual names and claiming they were paying individual consultants, and they actually made a claim on that basis. When they look behind the contractual arrangements, those consultants are set up personal services companies, often done for income tax and PAYE reasons. So they were actually, the contract was actually a payment from our client to the personal services company. Because it was a large company, it didn't qualify. SMEs will generally get relief.
Okay. One more.
So I think
it's very quick. What's the minimum sort of amount one can claim for, size of the sort of research budget or whatever?
Minimum?
Yeah. They changed it, didn't
because
they?
All of our claims are so large.
I know.
10,000, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a limit of 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000.
Not quite as 50,000.
I mean, if you're claiming that low, then it would have to be an obvious, clear case, slam dunk, because you probably wouldn't.
No, it was
it's useful.
It was something, wasn't it?
There's obviously no upper limit. And just to tell you quickly, HMRC, in the early years that this scheme came out, HMRC were pushing it very, very hard. They are still very favourably disposed to encouraging relief amongst SMEs and will encourage claims. Well, will encourage companies to get the claims right, i.e. to maximise the claims. The larger company claims are being looked at. It's changed as people have got used to it and the budget's been spent in the Treasury, that you do get some challenges. So the main thing is to identify what's qualifying. The number work is relatively easy. It's time consuming, but that's easy with a laptop. It's actually identifying the projects which may or not qualify as agents work through.
Thank you.
Do we have to?
One more, but very quickly.
Is it worth commenting on small companies being able to claim under the large company scheme?
Yes.
Because that can be quite important.
Yes, that's a very good point. It goes into relation to your question, actually. Some payments by SMEs don't actually qualify. That's a very good point from somebody that obviously knows about these things. SMEs are entitled to claim under the large company scheme. So if for some reason you break a condition or fail to satisfy a condition, you wouldn't get your 175%, but you would still get your large company uplift.